right, and click on the community forum link.
Right now, I'm still seeing
Down farther, go say community forum.
just a quick sound check here. Tim, can you hear me?
Shut all your doors.
Dare left our door open. Quick sound check here. How we doing? Check. Okay, can you hear me?
It was delayed.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John MacSwan, Superintendent of the Cleveland Hills Schools. I thank you for joining us this evening. I also want to thank all of you who have emailed or called me over the recent months with questions and concerns. Also, those who have submitted questions to this evening and asked also to speak this evening. I just want to be clear, this is not my reopening plan. This is all of our opening plan. We have had 4 committees district-wide with almost 90 people in to develop our reopening plans. That said, I know that no plan will make everyone happy. We have school community members that want us back to school at 100% right now. We have others that want 100% distance learning and several in between. This has been a long haul, and unfortunately, there is no definitive end in sight. I am joined here this evening in my office with our Board of Education President, Mr. Polino, along with our other Board of Education members viewing online. We also have all of our district office administrators and building principals here with us and available should a specific question come up related to their specific department or building. If there are any questions that we cannot answer at this time, we will get those to you as soon as possible. I want to begin by saying that there is no responsibility that I take more seriously than the health and safety of your kids, our students, and our faculty and staff. Health and safety has been and will continue to be the foundation for every decision that we make in regards to opening school. Our plan for this evening, I will make a short statement outlining what we have done here in district to get us to this point, selecting to opening schools and selecting our hybrid instructional model. I will then go through the questions that I received from you, our community. Several of those questions focused on very similar topics. I will try to answer similar questions with one detailed response. We received several questions, and to go through each of them individually would make for a several repeated questions and answers throughout the evening. If you did submit a question or not feel as though I was able to answer it tonight, please email me or call me tomorrow, and I will get right back to you. After the questions, I will call upon community members who asked to speak this evening. I do want to note, we will be holding another town hall meeting just like this one next Wednesday, August 19th at 11 a.m. to accommodate parents' work schedules. Additionally, our building principals will be conducting a virtual question and answer session for our community on Thursday, August 20th. You should have received a link earlier today to submit your questions to. If you did not receive this, you can find it on our website at the COVID reopening tab. There you will see a link to building-based community question and answer session. Now, I understand the fear that some people have about sending their children back to school or returning to work. Myself and a handful of others have been here at work throughout this period of dismissal. We have watched several of our colleagues return to work with the same fear that many of you have. Once they got accustomed to our new reality, following the CDC, the Department of Health guidelines, social distancing, frequent hand washing, keeping our hands away from our face, they transitioned back effectively and are much more comfortable being in the school setting. Compared to previous summers, we are presently running at over 100% capacity in preparing for school in September, and we are doing it safely. Our number one priority for opening school is the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff. The Board of Education and district administrators are all on the same page with this. Our second priority is supporting the social, emotional health of our students, faculty, and staff. Our counselors, social workers, and psychologists are already preparing for this. It will take some time to get everyone comfortable with being back in school and to establish the new safety procedures and practices as habits, but we will get there. Part of the safe and effective transition back to school is a true partnership with our parents. Parents and guardians will have a very important responsibility of checking the temperatures of their children each morning, monitoring them for COVID-like symptoms, and following the health and screening survey outlined in our plan. Initially, using our Blackboard Connect communication, we will provide parents notice reminding them of this health screening responsibility. If the response is yes to any of the questions on that screening survey, the student cannot come to school. Those questions will ask you about, did your child come into close contact within 6 feet of someone who had a laboratory confirmed COVID-19 diagnosis in the past 14 days? Does your child have symptoms of lower respiratory illness such as cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, or sore throat? Does your child have a fever? Did your child travel to one of the states listed on the New York State travel ban? A parent or guardian should call our health office at their earliest convenience if having to answer yes to any of the questions on the survey. Our health office personnel will assist you. If no one answers, please leave a message that includes your child's name, grade, and number that you can be reached at. Our health office staff will get back to you as soon as possible. And I know there's a lot of questions in regards to if we have a diagnosed case, and I will get into that shortly, since we do have a number of questions in that regard. Last Friday, the governor gave us a green light to reopen school. We used this weekend, Monday and Tuesday, to finalize our hybrid plan. Our initial consideration was to have 50% of students in every day, with alternating Fridays. We did tweak our hybrid structure and released that model yesterday. And we will get into more details of that model later as we go through the evening. We did choose this model because it aligns with the majority of the Erie One component districts, where we share services, vocational programming, special education services, and virtual learning. This model also allows us to address the individual needs of students, including those who may have full distance or may require a full distance learning model. This model provides us the best structure for our teachers to provide substantive instruction and engagement, both person and in remote. Using this model allows our food service to meet the state requirement to assure that students have food available every day. I had the question of several parents of, can we request a distance learning model if we're not comfortable having our kids come back to school? The answer is yes. We are not offering it as an overt option because we do believe that students are best served here in school in front of teachers. But if you are concerned or have an immunocompromised child, we will honor those requests. A survey in that regard was sent out earlier today. And I want to address some of the rumors that have been out there, and I do appreciate those that have called and asked in regards to, is it true that you're going to open up remotely for just a couple of weeks or a month and then transition to the full remote or full distance learning? That is not at all our plan. Our plan right now is to open up in the hybrid model as we laid out yesterday, and our goal is to return to 100%. I do know that there are some other districts around that are going and announcing that they're opening school in a remote system in September. We are not planning on doing that. We are planning to move forward with the hybrid. And again, our goal is to return to 100% in person here at Cleveland Hill. I can't speak, and I've received several questions. Each district is very different with their own unique set of circumstances. But here, we're comfortable and confident that our hybrid plan will be safe and effective in getting kids transitioned back into school. I've also been asked about, now in our new plan, you'll see that Wednesday is a remote day. This is not a deep cleaning day. I want to assure you, and I will get into a little bit more later, that our buildings are being deep cleaned daily, nightly. And so Wednesday's deep cleaning, that is not anything we're doing here. That is happening every evening with our second and third shift and throughout the day. We actually went and had a private company come in, assess our facility, measure the square footage, and evaluate our staffing levels to maintain the environment that we need to be safe here at Cleveland Hill. We've increased our staffing in the cleaning areas. We've expanded our second and third shift. Our staff, our cleaning staff, our custodial staff has also gone through extensive training. We've implemented, it's called a classroom disinfection program. And actually I have here each part of the campus that will be used or entered throughout the day is accompanied by a checklist here that the person responsible for cleaning that follows through, checks off, and initials after every cleaning so that we can track and monitor that we are meeting the standards that you would expect from us. We've also purchased all of the recommended products for cleaning as recommended by the CDC. I've had a couple of questions about air quality in the building. Fortunately, back in 2015, the voters approved a capital project of a little over $10 million. That capital project include a complete overhaul of a significant portion of the district's HVAC system. Couldn't have been a better timing for us. It's not like your home air conditioning system. It is called an air exchange system. It doesn't circulate the air that's in the building. When I met with our director of facilities, Mr. Robertson, the other day to evaluate the system with people that know a lot more about it than me, I was shown the thousands of square foot of air that is being exchanged by one single unit. The unit that I was looking at circulated 7,000 square foot of fresh air into the building every minute. We have those spread throughout the building. So if you do see, as you drive by the campus while we're here in session, that the windows are closed, it's because that helps balance the system and ensures that we are transferring and bringing in and exchanging fresh air into each classroom and part of the district that's being used throughout the day and evening. The present filters that are in those systems do meet the standard required. However, we have ordered the even higher rated MERV 13 filters, and we're hoping that those are in soon. Just a couple of other points I want to touch on that you may notice going through our plan that's posted online. We did change our elementary start time from an 8:20 to now an 8:30 start. We did that to ensure there was ample time to sanitize the buses prior to the picking up of the elementary students. I also want to thank the number of parents who have agreed to drive their children to school. That has helped us a lot in keeping the density as low as possible on the school buses. If you are able to drive your children to school, we greatly appreciate that. If you need to be transported, we will accommodate, but the fewer kids on the bus, the better, just again, for trying to control the density. At this point, I would like to start going into some of the questions. And as I did say earlier, I do have some of the building principals in here. And I said I may call on them, but I thought it would probably be best to hear from a couple of them as they are here, and actually all of our building principals. And the first question that I have will be answered by our elementary school principal, Mrs. Pasquale. And the question is, how will UPK work, universal pre-K work, in this selected model?
Sure.
Mrs. Pasquale?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. MacSwan. And I first and foremost want to say welcome to the Cleveland community and thank you for this opportunity to answer some of your questions. So specific to UPK, we are prepared to implement the instructional model that the district employs. And with this being a hybrid model, we are certainly prepared to do that as well. So in a hybrid model at UPK, the students would attend 2 days per week, and then the other days would be a remote learning day. So what remote learning would look like at UPK, it would include activities and tasks assigned by Mrs. O'Connor, the UPK teacher. She utilizes an app called Seesaw. So with that app, she will communicate with families and also post assignments that would be for the students to complete on those remote learning days. So in person, we have really worked hard to develop a way for students to both enter and exit the building safely and also interact within the classroom. So for arrival and dismissal, we have shifted it from the main doors, as it's usually been, to the back door or the back parking lot. So the staff parking lot is adjacent to Gilmore Avenue. Parents would drop off and pick up right there, and the students would be greeted by their teacher and enter through the kindergarten doors at the end of the kindergarten hallway. And that allows for a reduction of traffic and students mixing within that main entrance that we have at the elementary building. We also are going to be utilizing protective barriers in the UPK classroom. We will make sure that the students are following proper hand hygiene and respiratory hygiene throughout their time while they're in-person learning. We will provide opportunities for social emotional learning within their day, and that would also be provided remotely as well. We will focus heavily on maintaining proper protocols for cleaning and disinfecting between the AM and PM session. So the maintenance department and I have worked together to develop a system to make sure that those high touch areas in the UPK classroom are cleaned and disinfected between sessions. So bathrooms, cubbies, tabletop surfaces, rubber mats. So that will all be part of the cleaning protocols between sessions. Because of the need to clean and disinfect, we will be pushing back the PM start time by 15 minutes. So that start time would be at 12:30 and the end time would conclude at 3 p.m. So there will be an adjustment to allow for additional cleaning and disinfecting between the AM and the PM session. In regards to like play centers, which we know is so important in the UPK classroom, we will make sure that one student will be at each area. They will have separate bins, and those materials, toys, supplies will be cleaned and disinfected in between use. Mrs. O'Connor will have AM and PM bins, so we will not be sharing supplies, toys, and materials between sessions. So as indicated, we have planned for and are fully prepared to implement UPK within this hybrid model, and we look forward to doing so.
Thank you, Mrs. Pasquale. And lucky Mrs. Pasquale, actually the second question also would best be answered by you. What will reading instruction look like for our youngest readers?
Sure. So in the elementary school, we know that reading instruction is vital, it's critical. So that instruction will continue and it will remain true to those core elements that we know are needed for that responsive teaching. So what will differ is the physical setup. So in a traditional sense, you would see 5 or 6 kids at a guided reading table. Now we will have max of 2 with that proper distancing being maintained throughout. With that, we need to make instructional shifts and changes within the physical setup where the teacher would be interacting more so in a reader's workshop style with one-to-one conferring, really making sure to provide short spurts of instruction, not to extend beyond 10 minutes, but to really be responsive and target those individual student needs in a one-on-one or two-on-one type of format. Using proper PPE, using reading, following all the social distance guidelines, but that reading instruction can really remain intact with some, creative revisions to the physical setup. We will also leverage technology to help reinforce and support some of those early literacy concepts that we know are so critical. Teachers will also be equipped with clear face masks. And that's really important because of that phonemic and phonological instruction that is critical in the early grades. So with the clear masks and being able to provide that targeted instruction, we will certainly be able to continue that. Remotely, that instruction will continue as well, but remotely we will also be able to incorporate interactive read alouds, which will target those early literacy concepts, shared reading, and the phonics instruction that certainly needs to be a focus throughout. So instruction will look a little bit different in terms of the physical setup, but the core fundamental elements of effective reading instruction will remain intact.
Thank you, Mrs. Pasquale. Our next question, Mr. Wiles, our high school principal, will be answering. Can high schoolers who are distance learning still be able to obtain an advanced Regents diploma?
Thank you, Mr. MacSwan. I'll begin by saying that in all of our planning, the high school not excluded, our number one focus is on student safety, maintaining the highest possible standard of keeping our kids and our staff as safe as possible. Second to that was preserving our educational program as much as possible. We don't want to shortchange our kids at all. So that being said, some of those advantages that Cleveland Hill has to offer, like academic tracks that will result in an advanced Regents diploma, are still there. Kids can still take the courses even in a distance model. The Algebra 2, the extra science, the extra foreign language, those sequence classes that they need to finish to be able to get the advanced diploma. And that's something that actually over the last 2 years, we've vastly increased the number of kids that walk out of our doors with an advanced, and we want to keep that going. So it's all set and ready. We just need to get the kids going.
Thank you, Mr. Wiles. Our next question is, will the school district be COVID testing staff and students? I know there's been some confusion over this as we watch in the news. However, school districts are not permitted to request, require, or order testing of students and staff. That's purely done by the Erie County Department of Health, State Department of Health, and even they cannot require someone to go for a COVID test. And I will use, and I'll follow into the next question of what does tracing look like? I'm actually going to pull out a resource here that we will be posting on our website tomorrow. The protocol for symptomatic or positive COVID test for a student or staff. I'll just kind of walk everyone through this so we're on the same page. If a student or staff is symptomatic, fever, cough, shortness of breath, headache, loss of taste, smell, sore throat, congestion, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle or body aches, that student should be isolated and then sent home immediately. So if someone does come symptomatic here in the building, we will have a part of our facility will be designated as a COVID room where someone may have symptoms. The parent would be immediately notified, and we would then ask for that parent to come in and pick up their child immediately and take that child. We would recommend to have that child taken to their primary care provider. Now, upon returning to school, a student would have to come in with a note from their medical provider, a negative COVID test, or after being 10 days of when the symptoms have first were noted. But we cannot require a student or staff member to go out and get a COVID test. What we can do is we can follow the Department of Health guidelines in regards to their returning to school protocol. On the other side of it, if there is a positive COVID test here in district, we then notify the Erie County Department of Health. The contact tracing is actually initiated by the Department of Health. We partner with them, walk them through potential close contacts here in the district. The Department of Health then reaches out to those close contacts. Again, that is if a positive diagnosis here on campus, whether staff or student, is found. And again, we are following the Department of Health's lead. We are working in collaboration with them on that. If someone were to be found by the contact tracers to be in close contact, those people, individuals, whether it be student or teacher, are notified. Student, teacher, or parent of the student would be notified by the Department of Health, and they would then determine whether or not a 14-day quarantine period would then have to be initiated. After assuming that a 14-day quarantine period is initiated, that student would be able to come back to school after that 14-day quarantine period. If a student is symptomatic and chooses to not go for a test, they cannot return to school until after 10 days after being the symptoms first noted, no fever with no aspirin, ibuprofen, Motrin as a fever reducing method. And again, those are all laid out to us by the Department of Health, who we have worked in close contact with and continue to work with in developing these plans and protocols. There's kind of a lot to it, but we will be posting this online. And again, it really comes down to, I know it's been confusing myself as we've grown accustomed to some of the different language in this, but it really comes down to if someone gets sick, they're out for a minimum of 10 days. If someone is in close contact with someone who has had COVID, they are out for, they're in quarantine for a period of 14 days. And again, the contact tracing is handled by the county, partnering with the school district. The next question I have is, what is SEL? And that's a little bit what I touched on earlier. Is SEL is the social emotional learning of our students. That is something that we know a lot of us, all of us, have been impacted dramatically since March. And we know that a lot of faculty, staff, students, parents are struggling emotionally with the decision to come back to school. Students, upon coming back to school, will actually be administering, it's a short, very short survey. It's called the UCLA COVID survey. What we're really doing there is to check for students who may be suffering from trauma, from loss, or any number of things that may have impacted them over recent months. And our counselors, social workers, and psychologists will be using that feedback through that survey, not only to target individual students, but to develop programs and plans on transitioning kids back into school. As I said, our number one thing is the health and safety. The number two is the social emotional learning, getting people accustomed to being back here in the building. Once we get people more comfortable with being back here in the building, the real teaching, learning, and assessment of student growth is going to be the most important. But we need to get people back into school in a safe environment and comfortable with being in this setting. So the social emotional side of that is the second most important part on top of the health and safety. Do kids have to wear masks all day, only when moving? Do they get mask breaks? Do kids have to wear masks all day? No, kids do not have to wear masks all day. When they are moving through the hallway, transitioning from one place to another, they will be required to have masks. Do they get mask breaks? Yes, mask breaks will be a part of their day. But I also want to explain this. The way we've been able to structure our campus, we've taken our classrooms, we've checked to see what's the most number of students we're ever going to have in any one of these classrooms. We've removed all unnecessary furniture, desks that may have cut down on our the potential of separating and keeping students social distance. We are able to have well over the 6-foot required space between each of our students and our teachers in every one of our classrooms across the district. Now, it will be up to individual teachers, even though that 6-foot social distancing is there in place. It will be up to our individual teachers on whether or not they choose to have the kids leave their mask on throughout the course of the period or block, or if they can take them off. Again, they will be socially distanced well beyond the 6 foot. Some will also have the barriers in addition, but that will be up to the teacher. Now, when it comes to mask breaks right now, we're still working out that, but right now we're looking at the minimum of a 10-minute mask break per every class period or block that a student may be in. We're still working through that, but yes, students will have mask breaks. Masks will be worn, especially when there is any time that there's the chance that they can become within 6 foot of someone. And that's something pretty important too, I want to explain, is the definition of close contact. You'll see that outlined regularly throughout our plan. And I think it's important for everyone to understand what that is. Close contact is any time you are within 6 foot of another individual with or without a mask. We had a staff meeting yesterday, and I made it very clear to our teachers and administrators that at no time should anybody, faculty, staff, or student, ever be within 6 foot of somebody for 10 minutes or more. Teachers will be able to come up and work with students individually for shorter periods of time, less than 10 minutes, while both the student and the teacher are masked. But that contact, the close contact, is important because that is what we will need to communicate to the Department of Health should we ever have a positive case here at Cleveland Hill. Our goal is to make sure that if there were a positive case here in Cleveland Hill, and we are structured to be able to answer, there were no close contacts here. That student, that faculty or staff member did not spend more, 10 minutes or more, within a 6 foot radius of anybody in the district. So that close contact is going to be important when it does come down to potential contact tracing. Next question is, how much can we trust parents to screen their children every morning? We have to trust our parents. This is, as I said earlier, this is not, my plan, the district's plan. This is the Cleveland Hill School Community's plan. We need to trust our parents to check their child's temperature and to communicate with us should there be any symptoms moving forward. This is a true partnership that we need to work and trust one another, that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that school is a safe, rich learning environment for our kids. And that does start every morning with our parents screening their kids. And I do appreciate the question, but I do have faith in our parents that they will follow that guideline. Another question here in kind of in the mask realm. I can tell my child to keep her mask on all day unless masks are mandated. How can we trust the safest possible decisions are being made? I'm hearing if within 6 feet, if there will be plexiglass. There will be no classroom set up right now in the district where desks are anywhere near 6 foot close together. We're looking right now at our average class sizes, and any of our classes are going to be anywhere between 5 and 10 students at the absolute max. We actually, when we first looked at opening up schools, we were able to socially distance at 100% capacity. All of our students back, with teachers back in our current classrooms, with the classrooms basically being a shell, all furniture out, desks spread out throughout the classroom, the teacher's desk up against the front wall. We were able to do it at 100% capacity. There's no question that we can do it here. When we were looking at doing it at 100% capacity, we did find a small handful of classes. It was around 10 classrooms that were going to be a little tight. And we did order polycarbonate dividers for those classrooms. Right now, currently, we are not going to be operating at 100% capacity. We'll still be using those dividers in spaces because we have them, and they are another mitigating force. But there's no question with the 6 foot being available. And our hope, again, is to return to 100%. And we already have the PPE, the polycarbonate dividers, and the structures in place that hopefully we will be back to 100% with students here. What are the plans for the health and safety during the school day? That's the toughest question to answer because it is a long and lengthy answer. It is outlined in our plan posted online. We have done every thing that we possibly could and can. All of the Department of Health, the CDC, the State Education Department, and the governor's directives have been met fully and in compliance here at Cleveland Hill. There will also be training that will be taking place in the very first days of school, not only for our faculty and staff, but also for our students. As I've mentioned earlier, those habits that so many of us that have been working here since March have gotten into, we've got to make those habits for our faculty, staff, and our students as well. And we're going to work with them on that. And if whoever submitted the question, I assure you that we've checked every box in regards to what is required to open up school in a safe and effective fashion. I was asked a couple of times by board members, can we open up safely? And there is no doubt in my mind that we can open up adhering to as safe as any school district can be, we will be. Next question, what is the plan on when you send a student home, or what is the plan on when to send sick kids back after they have been out? Again, if a student is sick, with or without a COVID test coming back negative, they are out for 10 days. They can come back after 10 days if their symptoms have subsided, and if they are not taking fever-reducing medication and they have no fever, they can return. But once a faculty, staff, or student member is sick, they are home for a minimum of 10 days. If your child has allergies, and they may have, like me personally, I have terrible ragweed allergies. I've been coughing more in the last few days than I have in months. What I would encourage you to do is have your primary care physician send a note to the school just noting that your child has seasonal allergies or something that may cause alarm in somebody to have COVID-like appearance of COVID-like symptoms. That way we do have it on record. And the other question in that regard is if they are found to be COVID positive, will they be put into the full distance learning model? Yes. So if someone is in here in the hybrid model and they do come symptomatic or tested positive for COVID, we would simply shift them over to the distance learning model. Next question. Please explain the hybrid rotation. This one goes to Mr. Wiles.
Okay, so I can speak a little bit about the evolution of how the hybrid model has come to be, at least where we're at today. And again, these are all kind of draft concepts that we're evolving day by day as we work with our committees. But essentially where it stands right now is the hybrid model is a combination of in-person learning and remote learning. Students in each building were divided up into one of two groups. It would be either the blue group or the gold group. We're going to use our school colors. We took into consideration students that have siblings in other buildings to try to keep them in the same day group. But essentially the blue group are students who would report to school in-person instruction on Mondays and Thursdays. The gold group of students are students who would report on Tuesdays and Fridays. And then on the days when the students aren't here, they would engage in remote learning. So essentially, if there was a student in the blue group, they would come to school on Monday. They would go through their regular schedule of classes, whatever letter day it might be. And then the teachers, either that day or the following day, when they're engaging in the remote learning, would provide the students with some form of extension activity. So either independent practice based on the concept that they were presented with on Monday, or potentially some form of front loading. This is what you're going to be looking at on Thursday when I see you again, or some possible blend. When the students are actually on the Wednesday schedule, Wednesday, all students at this time are going to be in a remote setting. That Mr. MacSwan explained a little bit earlier, so I won't go too far into that, but essentially we are in the process of clarifying what that Wednesday is going to look like. There's going to be opportunities where synchronous instruction may take place. So students will have the opportunity to digitally meet with their teachers and receive some new instruction. But then there's also going to be opportunities where they may have continuations of remote learning. One final note on that, for some of our students who are of the highest need, whether it's specific special education accommodations, some of our English language learning students, some of our high need social emotional students, we've created a third group, the green group, kind of combining the blue and yellow concept. Our green group are a pre-identified group of students who need to be in the building all 4 of those days. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Those are students who we will work closely with their families to identify. But they are students who would need that in-person accommodation based on certain regulations that we have to follow. That being said, as Mr. MacSwan also mentioned, for any of the parents or guardians who have elected to not send their kids into school, we also have parameters in place to have students fully engage in distance learning. But this hybrid model is a great opportunity to start to get people safely back in the door, again, so long as the governor gives us the allowance to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Wiles. Next question is, many districts have proposed a hybrid model where a cohort attends school 2 days in a row with a deep cleaning day in between cohorts. Cleveland Hills plan currently has students attending every other day with no deep cleaning. Why is this advisable? I did touch on that earlier, and maybe I'll go into a little more detail on that. We've actually hired 2 very specific positions that are going to be, we refer to them as we're posting the position. They're going to be COVID cleaners. One will be located in the elementary building. The other one will be located in the high school, middle school. Those cleaners' job is to go around and clean throughout the day on a rotational basis, all high touch, high frequented areas, including any fixtures, doorknobs, light switches, restrooms, throughout handrails. Their job will be circulating throughout the course of the day as students are in school. Your students may see a cleaner coming in, especially at the elementary levels where we have some of the restrooms right in the classrooms, with a cleaner coming in throughout the day periodically, disinfecting that bathroom. And again, with the deep cleaning, maybe we're fortunate that we're all here on one campus. We're a little more efficient and effective with using our staff, being able to shift from building to building. But deep cleaning is something that we are doing every single evening with the second and third shift people that we will have on. So as far as having to rely on Wednesday for a deep cleaning, though we are now going to a full remote Wednesday, there will be no additional cleaning required on that Wednesday. Teachers will be in the district on that Wednesday doing their synchronous and asynchronous instruction, live or push out instruction to your kids. So like I said, the deep cleaning here is being done every evening and throughout the day. Are we more likely to choose in-person plan instead of a hybrid if the school has a clearance to open? We've made that decision. The in-person right now, I'm hoping for that. That is what our goal is to get back to 100% in person. The tough part of that is right now is that there's a lot of emotion and fear out there of people returning to school and work. And none of us are comfortable with bringing in 100% capacity of people at that time, just knowing that emotions are running very high. It's also going to help, I think, with a little bit of what we said earlier, is that social emotional transition of coming back into school is a close second to the health and safety. Coming in with 50% capacity, I think will help our students transition in, feel a little bit more comfortable being into a class with, anywhere between 5 to maybe 9 other students, and also help our teachers and staff report back. Many of them have not been to work and been in a building, and to step back into a building with almost 2,000 people running through it may be unnerving for some, again, until we can get some of those habits that some of us have now kind of ingrained into us into everyone else. And one thing I do also want to say in that too, I think that we're also very proud of, and maybe goes a little bit to that at the 50% capacity, and why I am hoping to be able to get to 100% capacity, maybe quicker than some other districts, is our class sizes are some of the best in Erie County. We're averaging below 20 in most of our classes. That's what's enabled us to initially develop a plan for 100% capacity of the return. So we're hopeful and optimistic that we can get back in our small class sizes. The large square footage that we have in our campus helps to that. But starting with the hybrid right now, we do believe is the prudent decision to get kids back in and transitioned in safely. Have you considered running the hybrid model for the first couple of months? Right now, we are going to commit to the hybrid model for an undetermined period of time. This has been, as you've seen, a very fluid situation. Things change quickly. It's tough to kind of figure out what may happen next week as to what may happen 2 months from now. We continue to monitor the spread of the virus in the county, in the state, across the country, and in different schools that have opened up. But as far as committing to it for the first couple of months, boy, if we were into school for 2 weeks and after conversations with the Commissioner of Health for Erie County, if she thought it was a prudent decision to get kids back into school at 100%, we would make that happen as quickly as possible. Our first initial question would be as to parents is how long is it going to take you to get ready to get your kids back to school at 100%? So I don't want to commit for any period of time, but that is what we are going to be starting in. And I would say at least for the month of September, that would be the model we would be incorporating. When will we know which model has been selected? Obviously, we announced that yesterday, and it wasn't that we, it took some time. We'd actually changed, as I said earlier, our model from a 5-day model to a 4-day model for the aforementioned reasons that I had discussed. And we selected this model to, sorry, my screen just started flickering on me here. Gotta love technology when it works. The question of when will we know the model? It wasn't that we did not have a model ready to roll out until the governor gave us clearance to open schools on August 7th. The best any announcement that I could have made would have been speculative. It's been pretty clear the governor's making the calls on how and when schools will be opening. And so any decision made or announcement made prior to August 7th, I think would have been premature. We were anticipating announcing Monday, but it did take us till Tuesday by the time we had our full staff meeting, work with the labor associations on getting that nailed down. Why are you having virtual meetings when you expect kids to be physically in school? Fair question. The reason we're doing this virtually is because we were not sure, and we're assuming right now we have literally hundreds of people maybe watching. Looking at the capacity in our auditorium to hold this type of a meeting, we would have been lucky to be able to get about 40 people in there with the required social distancing as outlined by the CDC and the Department of Health. I would love to have this meeting in person. I'm much more comfortable instead of talking into a screen, sitting in front of people and conversing with you. So that would have been my preference. Just unfortunately right now, due to the guidelines, there is no meetings permitted, regardless of the size of your facility, of over 50 people. And we don't have the capacity that we could have gotten even that many into our auditorium. And what we want to do is accommodate as many people as we could have. We've already kind of touched on this one. Are we allowed to pick our plan? For example, if the school picks full attendance or hybrid, are families allowed to opt to distance learning? We are honoring those requests. And again, maybe it's a play on semantics. We do believe, I wholeheartedly believe that we can offer a safe hybrid option for your kids to return to school. That being said, parents that do have the concerns of having their kids come back to school, I fully and completely understand that. And we will honor those requests by putting your child into the distance learning model. I do want to be clear that there's a lot of moving parts to laying this out with staffing and scheduling, and that we are asking parents who do choose to go the distance learning option they will have to commit to that for a quarter at the middle school, high school, and for the first trimester at the elementary school. At the end of those marking periods, we would be asking parents again if you are considering transitioning your kid back into the building. Our next question is, how will cohorting work in the elementary school, middle school, and high school? And for this response, I will go to Ms. Kirsten, our middle school principal.
Hi, good evening, everyone. At the elementary level, cohorting will work very similar to how it has in years past. Students would be assigned a traditional primary classroom teacher at the elementary level. The big difference at the elementary school is that special area teachers, such as art, music, would be rotating into the classroom spaces as opposed to the students traveling to those remote classroom spaces. Now, at the middle school level, the concept of cohorting is new. The decision to move to this cohort model was made purely for safety reasons, based on the guidance that we received from the CDC and the State Education Department recommendations. The reason we made this decision was to significantly reduce the amount of potential student-to-student contacts throughout the course of the day, and also the number of surfaces and spaces that would need to be cleaned throughout the day. So the way that this would work at the middle school level is students would be grouped into cohorts based on unique accommodation support services that they would need, special scheduling requests, such as if a student was a band student or a chorus student, and they would remain in the classroom for the most part, with some exceptions, through the course of the day. Their content area teachers, math, science, ELA, social studies, and their exploratory teachers, art, music, phys ed, would rotate into the classroom spaces to deliver instruction. As I mentioned, there are some exceptions for courses such as band and chorus, where we need larger spaces to socially distance. The minimum spacing is 12 feet. We know that we can exceed that, but students will move to the auditorium for those classes, for band and chorus classes, and as well as for all of our classes, when possible, when weather permits, teachers will be encouraged to take students outside for instruction. Now at the high school level, the high school situation is a little bit different because students at the high school level have very specific scheduling needs and graduation requirements. So for this reason, the option of cohorting is not a possibility truly at the high school level.
Thank you, Mrs. Kirsten. The next question was about details regarding drop-off and pickup. Those are very specific to building level pickup and drop-off procedures. And those, be quite frankly, we are still developing those. As I did say earlier, our building principals have a question and answer community forum scheduled for August 20th, next Thursday. Those are questions that they will be answering at that time. Next question, I'm concerned about the vagueness of safety drills. They must have looked at the plan. I appreciate you looking at the plan. I guess what I can tell you about our safety drills is they will continue on. They're actually required by law that we run those safety drills. We will still be running the same number of safety drills, including fire drills, lockdown drills, emergency evacuation drills. All drills will still be followed as required, with social distancing protocols put into place. Now, what we may do is we may announce for the first 1 or 2 drills to give our students and teachers an opportunity to prepare for those drills, which we don't typically do. And we probably will not be doing any of those drills in the first couple of weeks of school. I think coming into school is enough of a drill for some people to start back to school and to throw a fire drill or a lockdown drill on them. So, but we will be following all of those safety drills. Next question. I am not comfortable sending children back at half. I am more comfortable sending children back at half capacity, but I'm hoping they don't need to wear masks while in the classroom. I agree with you. We are able to completely social distance kids in the classroom well beyond the 6 foot. I don't feel that kids should be covered all day. I concur. Small periods of time, like in the hallways during pickup times, I think is fine. I agree. And social distancing should be easier at half capacity. I, again, fully and wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I will have to, again, though, refer to and respect an individual teacher's right and responsibility to run their classrooms. Many of them have a lot of the same fears as some of the parents in coming back. And I think that as they come back and they transition in, remember, this is a transition for parents, students, as well as our faculty and staff. And, I can say, as I said earlier, watching people coming back into the work setting, getting more accustomed and comfortable with the environment, the stress does diminish dramatically. And I anticipate teachers who may be requiring maximum of students wearing masks and incorporating the mask breaks. After they get a little more comfortable with it, they may choose to forego the masks while students are seated and socially distanced. But again, masks will be used in transitioning or anytime there is a chance that they come within 6 foot of another student, faculty, or staff member. What triggers a shutdown? What will trigger a shutdown is a decision that will be made. I will make the final decision, and I will say that I will completely follow the guidance and direction from the Commissioner of Health, Dr. Gail Burstein. I have been able to work with her regularly as late as Monday. I had met with her prior to our announcing our hybrid plan to make sure that we were all on the same page with the testing, tracing requirements as outlined by the governor. That was another reason why we wanted to wait until those questions were answered by Dr. Burstein. I was reluctant to make any announcements. She put us at great ease on how that would work and the support we would get from the county. So that is, when it comes down to triggering a shutdown, the Erie County Department of Health has been absolutely incredible at working with us, and any of those decisions would be made in concert with the Department of Health. Will teacher aides be hired to assist in primary classrooms with hand washing, etc.? We're not hiring any additional aides. We are already well staffed and have aides or 2 teachers in many of the classrooms or teacher assistants. And again, we are going to be focusing on, in the early days of school, is the transitioning kids back. Kids will be being trained on proper hand washing techniques, proper application and removal of masks, how to dispose of masks, how to maintain social distancing. Everything from ropes with 6 foot markers on them for kids to hold as they are walking through the hallway, trying to teach them what a 6 foot social distance barrier is. But no, we are not planning on hiring aides to wash hands. How can you justify a new sports field you just finished up in the spring behind everyone's back while we were in lockdown and not provide better safety measures like pods? I'm not sure what pods are, or plexiglass, etc. Real quick, just on that, I'm glad you said plexiglass. Plexiglass really was not an option. It has to be a polycarbonate divider due to its fire rating. And I do also want to say with the football field, that was actually approved by voter referendum with the overwhelming support from the community back in 2015. And in every calendar message that I have drafted and in every newsletter message I have drafted, starting back a year prior to the vote. So actually in the later part of 2014 up through last year, there were updates, including pictures of the progress on our capital project. And actually the football field was not put in this spring. That football field was actually completed last summer. We actually completed an entire varsity football season on it last fall. So I'm sorry if that I didn't read the question correctly, but yeah, that was one thing the board made very sure that that capital project was fully supported by the community. And I would also like to remind that we also did not use or did not impact the tax levy at all in doing that capital project. We were able to allocate fund balance to any of the local share that may have cost. When it comes down to the plexiglass or the polycarbonate dividers, we already have them here in district. There are more en route for the anticipation of moving and transitioning in the future to 100% capacity. So all of that has been, is here. Will there be air purifiers put in the classroom? Will barriers be purchased? I think I've touched enough on the barriers. Air purifiers in the classrooms? No. The new, again, going back to what I said earlier, the new HVAC system, the air exchange handlers that we have already meet those requirements. They're souped up and highly effective. If we could not have positioned ourselves any better for a capital project to switch out our air handlers. Those were finished with the football field last year. So we're fortunate to have those. And again, the filtration system does meet standards now. And again, the MERV 13 filters are on order, and we're hoping to have them in as soon as possible. Is our special ed or ESL students' attendance differ than regular ed attendance? High need students will be attending daily. And when I say daily, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday will be a full remote day for everybody. And specifically, our self-contained special needs students are top priority and will be in school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, again with remote. I will be going back to Mrs. Kirsten for this next one with a question about meeting 504 plans.
Sure. So students who meet the eligibility requirements for accommodations under a 504 plan will continue to receive those accommodations regardless of what instructional model the district is moving forward with. I will say, for example, a traditional 504 accommodation may be extended time on tests, for example. That being said, 504 plans and accommodations are very unique to the needs of the individual student. And if there is a specific parent concern or a concern with a particular model, we will work very closely with parents to make any adjustments to the plan that are needed to best meet the needs to support the student.
Thank you, Mrs. Kirsten. I was just explaining how challenging this is and how much I prefer to be in person with people. When I'm speaking, I'm looking at a completely black screen. So it's a little tough to be engaging staring at a black screen. So I apologize for that. In what situation will school districts be providing technology to students? We will provide technology to students that are in the hybrid or in the distance learning model who do not have devices at home. There was also a question earlier that I think I may have skipped past in regards to the serving of lunches. I did want to go back to that one. What we've done is we've kind of repurposed large sections of our campus. As you currently know, our large cafeteria has always been split with elementary on one side, middle school and high school on the other. That entire cafeteria space now is considered the elementary school cafeteria. Across the hall in our middle school, high school gymnasium is going to become the new middle school, high school cafeteria. Right now, we are still coordinating with our food service director on setting up serving lines in the middle school, high school gymnasium. We're still working out the details on that. Again, our number one focus is the health and safety of students. They will not need to wear masks in the cafeteria, but they will need to wear masks as they're up moving through the serving lines until they are seated and socially distanced 6 foot away from any of their classmates. How can I justify sending kids back to school with no real safety protocols? I don't know how to answer that question. I would refer you to our district level plan. If there's any specific protocols that you feel that we are missing or need to address, please let me know. And I do often get from people recommendations for things that they feel as though we should do. I appreciate those calls and those emails, and please keep sending them to me. But I am following and will continue to follow the guidelines and the directives, again, from the Department of Health, the CDC, the governor, and the state education department. How can teacher fears drive this decision as it affects my child's education? These kids need to be back in school, as distance learning doesn't work. They should not be dictating the solution so their lives are more convenient. Well, I don't think any of our teachers are dictating a solution to make their lives more convenient. Our local teachers association, their leadership, and our teachers have been an important partner in getting prepared to reopen schools. They are not making the decisions, but do have a voice in the decisions being made. And I have appreciated their efforts and their support throughout this. That being said, there are influences out there across the region, across the state, across the country that may be trying to dictate what occurs here at the local level. And that is where it is my responsibility, all of our responsibilities, including our parents, to communicate and to work together to be sure that we are successful in moving forward to eventually getting all of our students back here in school at 100% capacity. A couple of other questions here, and then we're getting near the end, I promise. Thank you for everyone that's still joining us. Has the school corresponded with the Department of Health as to what the Department of Health feels is safe and okay for our children? Yes, repeatedly, regularly, myself. I actually have Dr. Gail Burstein's personal phone number, her cell phone number. Haven't had to use it. That would be in a real dire circumstance, but she has been absolutely great. And like I said, I've met her with her at least 3 times within the past 4 weeks, as late as Monday. And she is very well aware of what we are implementing here at Cleveland Hill and other districts. And we have her full support in the reopening model and the steps that we have taken. Her directions we're following. So does the school have enough proper PPE supplies, personal protective equipment, PPE, to keep things safe? We have literally thousands of disposable masks here. We've also ordered, I think we've actually surpassed now 1,000 fabric masks that we are ordering for our faculty, staff, and students to have here. Actually, the staff ones and the student ones are going to look a little different. The Cleve Hill one for our faculty and staff actually has it's a logo that we have around campus, the Cleveland Hill One Team, One Dream. That'll be the staff mask. And the student masks, we've ordered them in various sizes to accommodate UPK through our seniors, actually have a eagle on them. So yes, we are well, and also just a couple of those polycarbonate dividers. We have the shields, masks, as Mrs. Pasquale had mentioned. We also have the clear masks for some students that may need to see facial gestures and lips being moved in some of the therapies. We have gloves, gowns, signage, and floor markings being applied as we speak. So yes, I'm very comfortable with the PPE and supplies. Is there going to be additional cleaning throughout the day? I think I had already discussed that. And how are classrooms going to be spaced out? They're going to be spaced out as much as possible. The minimum number of desks required in a classroom was what will be in there, with a teacher desk and only absolutely essential furniture. Everything else is being removed that is not a necessity. You'll actually see we have some storage containers here on campus. What is currently in there is furniture that we are not expecting to use for any time. We do have other locations throughout the campus where teachers, because again, with that cohorting model, teachers will be traveling, students will not be at the elementary and middle school. So we've also have places where teacher materials can be stored, where teachers will have access to those materials throughout the workday and year, and places for them to be able to sit down and spread out and work while the classroom that they may have, consider their classroom is being used. And the last question that I have here is an explanation of the hybrid model. And I'm going to go to our Director of Instruction and Technology, Mr. Janis, as well as our high school principal, I believe, Mr. Wiles.
Hi, Mr. Wiles. Would you like to start or would you like me to start?
I did touch a little bit about that hybrid model, but if there's anything that you'd like to share on, you can go ahead and start, and I'll fill in anything else I think I need to.
Well, first of all, those people who are been in our district, you're used to a rotational schedule that we rotate the days A through F. Every school is going to be on the same rotational schedule, starting with the letter A. But what we're doing is the first day of, the first day in a cycle might be an A day for blue. And then the next day might be an A day for gold. And then Wednesday, remember, is that remote learning at home where everyone's at home and the whole class can be together. And then Thursday and Friday would be like a B day blue followed by a B day gold. And then we go into the next week. So when they're on their remote learning at home on Wednesday, they're actually going to follow a schedule. It's going to be shortened a little bit. But for example, Mr. Wiles and Mrs. Kirsten truncated their schedule because it's very difficult to have students online for 6 hours. It's not reasonable, to be quite honest. So Tim, can you kind of elaborate on what you've done with your Wednesdays?
Yeah, so this is something that we're still working out in committee, and naturally with it being an evolving process and really with changes being made as recent as yesterday, our aim is to try to create a consistent schedule based on a letter day where synchronous learning opportunities can take place. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one of our biggest takeaways from the distance learning that we experienced in the spring was that there was a lot of difficulty in getting that teacher to student contact time. Our teachers went above and beyond. They were meeting with students at 11 o'clock at night because that's when they could. So this is in an effort to really try to pin down everybody's schedule in a reasonable way that's going to build that connection. The other part to that is those students who are, considered medically fragile or who emotionally aren't prepared to come back into the building and they're choosing that distance learning piece. Wednesdays would give them an opportunity to digitally have a little face-to-face with the teacher of record. Although during distance learning, they might be working with another staff member, potentially a home instructor, possibly a BOCES teacher. There's a variety of ways that that's going to be implemented. But that Wednesday will still give them that contact with the teacher of record, with that person who, ultimately, ideally, if they are able to return to the building at some point, they'll be back with that person. So it's a way to really build that relationship in a way that kind of marries everything together. Again, focusing on students, focusing on keeping everyone healthy, but still also recognizing the efforts that our staff have put in over the last 8 months or so.
Just to elaborate a little bit more, we're going to start sending out a mailing tomorrow that will include 3 pieces. First of all, it's going to be a color-coded calendar for the hybrid and distance learning model. So you'll be able to say, what's going on September 8th? Oh, it's a Monday, so we know it's a blue day, and then it happens to be a B day. So remember, if you're blue, you're going to be Monday, Thursday in school. If you're gold, Tuesday, Friday. And remember, everyone's online on Wednesday. So we're going to have that calendar. It's already posted online if you go to clevehill.org/cycle day. We're also going to, and this is critical, and we do this every year, we send you a student demographic sheet. Please give us any updates because always when we do school closings, we'll get a call saying, I never got a call about school closing. And then you find out they switched their email and they switched their phone number. So we need to be updated even more frequently in this case. So you're going to get a student demographic sheet that you can mail back. If you want, you could drop it off at the main offices and we get immediately replace the information on there. And then the last thing is you're going to get a letter designating your child or your children's group, whether it's blue or gold or green. The self-contained kids are green. So you're going to get blue or gold. But remember, we took initially when we sorted them, we did it by alpha. But as you may all know, not necessarily every brother and sister has the same last name. So after we did that, we had to sort it by street name. And we had to go through 1,400 street addresses to see, okay, are all the siblings either gold or blue? So really that became the ultimate sorter, was we want brothers and sisters to go to school on the same days. So families are going either on Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday. So if you get a letter that does not correspond with that, I want you calling us immediately because it's an error and we want to catch it. You know, I don't think there's going to be, because we looked over it so many times, but with 1,400 kids, you know, it could happen. Okay, so that's going to start to go out tomorrow. We're going to start stuffing these letters, and every student will get a letter. So if you have 5 children, you are getting 5 letters individualized for all 5 of them. Okay. Thank you, Mr. MacSwan.
Mr. Janis, if I could add just one quick point to that too. Our mode of communication throughout the district, we have a variety, and one of the blessings that came of this in March was the establishing of student emails. So students do get emails quite frequently. Parents and guardians, I can only offer this recommendation. If you're concerned that you're not getting information at your own email address through our Blackboard Connect connections, don't be afraid to have your student log in and check their email too, because typically if some information does come out, I copy it to the students just to make sure that it's going really to as many avenues as possible. And I know a lot of the other building principals will follow that same suit. I've also had some parents who are expressing that they don't get the text alerts or some of the Blackboard phone calls that are sent out. Sometimes, and I've been guilty of this at times too, you get that option to click stop or text back stop because it's just too many texts at once. If you made that choice, accidentally or intentionally, but you would like to continue receiving those updates, just call the office and we can talk you through the steps of how to get those notifications back, because I know that information is critical at this point and we want to put that in as many people's hands as possible. So email, text, Blackboard Connect phone calls, all of those things are what we're going to use. And I highly advise parents, give us your updated demographic information as quickly as possible so we can make sure we get you the information just as quickly.
And just regarding the email addresses, if you recall, in mid-March, we quickly put together a letter and sent you your child's email address and password. We're going to do the same thing. Even though we believe most of our students know those things, you can't assume that. So we're going to send a letter to everyone, including UPK, saying, here's your child's email. And those of you who have been parents who usually know it's like first initial, last name with projected graduation year. So mine would have been D. Janis, 1985. I figure some of you might enjoy that. Yes, very great. I don't color it either. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Janis. Do you want me to compliment how good you look for your age? I think that's what he was looking for there. Okay, we are now to the point where we will ask for our community members. Mr. Janis, if I'm not mistaken, you've given me a list of names here, so I will read. The first name is going to be Mary. Mary, you'd like to make a comment?
Yes, I would. I don't know if this was already answered. My computer kept freezing on me. I know you said for those who are going to do the full virtual method, they have to commit to it. Now, if I would like to send my child the hybrid method, but say a few weeks in, numbers start rising in cases for the virus and I start getting uncomfortable, at any time, can I say, listen, I want to go all virtual instead? Or do you also have to commit to the hybrid if you choose to go that route?
No, excellent question. And actually, I did not answer that. So you're very right on target with a great question. We would be able to accommodate the request to shift from hybrid to a full distance learning model. However, the one thing, and I'm not familiar with what grade or age your kids are, but as we get up in the grade levels, when we do look at some of the more specific programming or courses or elective classes your child may be in, we may not be structured to meet their needs in every one of their courses. Like, let's say they're taking advanced chemistry. We may not have an advanced chemistry district learning model running, but we would be able to accommodate that request. But I wouldn't want to promise that every single one of the courses, but all the core courses and any of the graduation requirements would absolutely be able to shift over to the hybrid. The reason we can't allow the flipping, especially from the distance into the hybrid, is because it's really that balancing of staff and class sizes of the kids here to make sure that we keep the class sizes as balanced as we can and as small as we can across the different sections and grade levels. Thank you. Zed, do you have any other questions? You're muted, I think.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. The next one is, I know if you do go remote full time, there's going to be synchronous and asynchronous learning methods. Now, how often are they going to be synchronous with the teacher during that 5 days a week if you went all remote? And how often will it be the asynchronous?
We have different teachers that will be teaching in the hybrid model, the distance learning part, the remote side of the hybrid model. And then there'll be different teachers that will be doing the distance learning for kids that are purely distant. We are expecting the teachers that provide the distance learning, the substantially equivalent minimum would be approximately 10 hours a week of direct synchronous instruction with a teacher online. Again, that would be the minimum. A lot will be on the kids' individual needs that they may require additional support. And then, so I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, that does. That answers my question. And last thing I have is about gym class. When they're in school, how are these kids supposed to be participating in gym? Well, because they can't wear a mask and run around, these kids will pass out. That's why, gyms aren't open here in New York already. So how are they going to do gym class if they are going back hybrid?
Well, the only actual physically exerted phys ed courses will only be occurring outside. When we do shift, hopefully, I'd love to say that we're going to be back at 100% capacity by the time the snow starts to fly. But when we do bring kids in for gym, there will be classrooms in the where they're cohorted at the elementary and middle school. The phys ed teachers will actually be going into the class. At the high school, they've established classrooms that the kids will go to get their phys ed instruction, and they will be focusing on a number of different types of things, from the importance of physical fitness, nutrition, different habits, being a teammate, partnership in a classroom environment. There's a lot of things that our phys ed staff is incredible, and they're already working on different meaningful, engaging things that a lot of kids would be able to participate in. It's kind of like back when I was in school, if I break a bone, written out of phys ed, but I had to do other types of work that aligned with the curriculum. But thank you for your question. Now we are going on to Amarella.
Good evening. I am actually new parent of an incoming kindergartner, and I'm trying to wrap my head a little bit more around the hybrid model. It's to my understanding they'll be in person 2 days, have some synchronous instruction on Wednesdays. However, the other 2 days that they're not, being led by a teacher, what does that instructional model look like? Will it all be just self-paced assignments, pre-recorded videos? And how many hours of work can we expect on those 2 or off days where they're not, working directly with the teacher?
Excellent question, and I will ask Mrs. Pasquale to address that. And I will just ask, and it's an excellent question. Those will be the types of like building level specific curriculum questions that the principals will be able to address fully, but it's an excellent question. I'll have Mrs. Pasquale, our elementary school principal, touch on it.
Sure. Well, thanks for the question and welcome to Cleve Hill. We're excited to have a new little eagle. So in terms of the remote side of the hybrid, so when the kiddos are home on those 2 days, it would be more asynchronous in that they would be provided with extension activities or tasks to do at home in a self-paced type of format. So that would be the structure. And in terms of what to expect relative to time requirements, it's going to be reasonable. Our kindergarten teachers did a phenomenal job back in the spring with providing those engaging activities and doing so in a very developmentally appropriate way. So it will be something that, we'll build up to. It takes stamina. It's not something that the kiddos are familiar with or used to. So we will certainly establish reasonable requirements and be very responsive to the families because it's something that's new for our kindergarten kiddos, our new K parents. So it'll be something that will be certainly supported, and we will be responsive to make adjustments as needed, but more asynchronous, extension activities, self-paced.
And also, how are you tracking attendance and participation? So let's say if there's a Wednesday and you have a working parent that might not necessarily be able to get on right away, will it be pre-recorded? And then how will you track whether or not the students went back and watched it? Will they get credit for that? And just kind of what your overall ideas for tracking participation and attendance.
Sure. Yeah, great question. So as mentioned, our K teachers back in the spring, I can't speak highly enough about them because they really shifted in a very short period of time to a Google Classroom format. So posted activities, pre-recorded videos were frequent, and they were on their Google Classrooms. Parents were able to get on and help their students access the required tasks for the day, complete those tasks or view a video. And because of it being in the online format, that attendance it's noted, it's time stamped, and the teacher can see who's engaging, who's not. And then, like you said, there's multiple reasons why somebody may not be able to get on at a certain time or complete a certain task, and that's why that flexibility is built in. And oftentimes we have to work, individually one-on-one to accommodate and support and work with a family to make sure that they're supported and supporting their child at home. So it's definitely a collaborative effort, and it's something that, technology we leverage heavily, and the K team did a phenomenal job with using that with their kiddos, and they will continue to do so in the fall.
Awesome. My last question is, do you have any plans for, have you done anything to shift toward, intervening or intervention, for students who might need intervention services? How will that look differently in your hybrid model?
Sure, great question again. So in terms of academic intervention services, we do have a nice core group of teachers that will be providing AIS services, although it won't happen as quickly as it would in a normal year. So we're really going to take time, like Mr. MacSwan mentioned, to focus on the health, safety, and welfare of our kiddos, the social emotional piece. Our AIS teachers will support in that using proper social distancing and all the PPE that's required. But initially, to that transition into school will be a support. Once the dust settles, we will be administering our measures in our standardized testing to gauge where students are. And then, we factor, we're planning for late September, early October to really look at, who needs the services, limiting commingling between classrooms. So there's a strategic piece to the scheduling, and then those services would be provided. Could be provided in the academic intervention teachers workspace or right in the classroom. So we'll make those determinations as it gets closer to the time to implement those services.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
And thank you for the question. I do just want to, with the directions is that we have 4 people yet that have yet to ask questions. I'm going to go through and everyone will get 1 question, then I will go back to the 4 that have not yet been questioned yet. But thank you for your questions. They're excellent. Next, we go to Amy for 1 question, then we will go to Megan, Jamal, and Bob, and then we'll be back up to Amy after that. So, Amy.
Thank you. So my son will be entering the 5th grade in September, and I was wondering on the days where he'll be in the hybrid model working remotely, will he have access to his teachers or will it be strictly independent work?
If you don't mind, Mrs. Pasquale, I will have you touch base on that as well.
So, hi, Mrs. Troutman, how are you? Good. So in terms of the opposite side of the hybrid, the thought is and the plan is for that to be primarily asynchronous with extension activities. So in terms of access to the teacher on those days opposite the in-person days, meaning the Tuesday, the Tuesday, Friday, Monday, Thursday, depending on which group your child is in, it would be more of an extension, enrichment, independent learning opportunities based on the skills, concepts, and ideas taught in person. So it's an extension, and then, or like Mr. Wiles mentioned, it could be some front loading to prepare for the next in-person learning day. So those off remote days, now I'm not speaking about Wednesdays, those are those opposite remote learning days, would be more independent, where the students can self-pace and they're not live with their teacher at that time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And I will come back to you if you have any further questions. Just, I was told I'm supposed to go one by one and then cycle back through. Megan, do you have a question or comment for us?
I do, only because, and I'm not sure actually if this is better for the meeting that's building specific now that has been like a newly announced meeting. So I'm sorry. I appreciated hearing from Ms. Pasquale because I will have a pre-K and kindergarten kiddo on that end, but I now also have a 6th grader. And so I'm wondering for kids that are virtual specifically, since the middle school schedule looks so different than an elementary schedule and they're switching between kids, can you just speak a little bit to what the middle school day will look like for learners who are learning like singularly at home?
Yes, absolutely. This is the right time to ask those questions. I will have Mrs. Kirsten touch base on that one. Mrs. Kirsten?
Sure. So for those students who are learning 100% through distance learning, they will be provided with a specific schedule by their teacher that will be working with them directly. So lesson plans will be provided from their core content area teachers, and then a certified teacher will be working synchronously with your child throughout the course of the week on those instructional materials. So on average, I would say that you can count on 2 hours of synchronous learning opportunities for your child every day, as well as some extension activities for them to do independently throughout the course of the week.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Kirsten, and thank you. We are now going to Jamal.
Thank you. I wanted to touch up on a question that you somewhat answered earlier about what triggers a shutdown. So I just want to know like some more specifics. I know you said something about having a joint decision with the Erie County Health Commissioner, or like any specific, test numbers or symptoms, like what like specifically would trigger the school to shut down for a week, 2 weeks, a month.
Yeah, and Jamal, it's great to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jamal, excellent question. What I can tell you is, what I've looked at in the numbers right now, the infection rate for the county is a little below 1%. I don't know if they took into account that recent thing that was in the news of a car show in Eden. I guess someone was found positive there, but right now it's again below 1%. According to the governor, he's kind of established a threshold of about a 5% spread rate. Is where we would start having to look or consider different options. And when I look at the numbers and the trends and the curves that in the 7-day and 14-day moving averages of those numbers, I'm an educator, Jamal, so I understand them, but the application of those to closing schools, I'm much more comfortable. And really, we have followed Dr. Gail Burstein. She's the Commissioner of Health, her direction and guidance on that. So I'm not real comfortable in giving specific numbers because I don't understand the numbers well enough and what's behind the numbers, because there's times where I've seen numbers and thought that may trigger a response, and it did not. And there were other times where I saw numbers I didn't think would raise any attention, and it did. So, I just assure you that, again, your safety, your classmates' safety, your teachers, your staff, everybody here, it is the top priority. And if I ever err on the side of caution, it will be to close down school, to go to the remote or full distance learning model before I would ever put someone in jeopardy if I thought that was an issue, concern, or if it was suggested by the county health department.
Looks like Bob left.
All right, thank you, Jamal. It looks like Bob, our next speaker, if you're there, Bob, this would be your opportunity. It looks like you stepped out. So I will go back now to Amy.
Mary.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going back to Mary. Sorry, Amy, I will be right back with you. Mary, did you have any other further questions for us?
Let's see here. I think that's actually pretty much about it. You answered, a lot of the questions I had written down for the most part. The biggest thing is, when cold and flu season starts up, and then you got RSV running around, and then the COVID, how are you guys kind of going to distinguish one from another at that point?
That is going to be a challenge. I don't have an easy answer for you. We will assume that if it is, we're going to use our nurses. They've been trained, will be trained and supported by the county health. And we also have a district physician who will be engaged in those decisions. That is going to be a challenge. But we will have to assume that if there are COVID-like symptoms, whether they're seasonal allergies or RSV, the cold, or the regular flu strand, we're going to have to follow those as if it were a COVID symptom until we find that there is a negative COVID test or they've gone through the required isolation period or quarantine period. So we're going to err on the side of caution. We have to assume it's all COVID.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Amarella, did you have any other questions for us?
I don't have any other questions, but I just want to say thank you because today was very informative and you've been very clear and I've gotten a lot of information. I feel like I'm very equipped to make an informed decision. I know how much work goes into it because I'm an educator myself, and I know the hours of how labor intensive it is and how it just bogs you down. So I just want to commend you all and say thank you for continuing to push out information for us. And this session was very helpful and I feel very comfortable in making an informed decision. So thank you.
Well, Amarella, thank you very much and welcome to Cleveland Hill. We will go back to Amy.
I guess back to Ms. Pasquale, just as a follow-up to my previous question, knowing that the days that they're working remotely in the hybrid situation, and if my son is struggling with a particular concept but doesn't have access to his teacher, what are the expectations in completing those assignments?
Yeah, great follow-up. And I will add that, the platform, the Google Classroom platform will be utilized. So in that way, there's messaging and there's other ways to connect with a teacher or AS provider or whoever would need to receive that information to help him overcome whatever barrier he's facing. So, through that platform, communication can happen. It just won't be live with the teacher because the teacher will be teaching the other side of the cohort with in-person instruction. So we will have those ways to communicate. It just unfortunately won't be, live. It would be more asynchronous, and that type of interaction would fall under an asynchronous type of learning opportunity. But there will be support, and then certainly when they come back for that second day of in-person instruction, a lot of reteaching or going back and revisiting previously taught skills, especially if it's a fairly new concept, will be something that's recursive and planned for. So yeah, it would be challenging, obviously, but we will have creative ways to support our kiddos at our home learning.
Thank you, Mrs. Pasquale, and thank you, Mrs. Troutman, for the question. And we are back to Megan for another question or comment.
I'm wondering if any thought has been given to social and emotional connection for kiddos across distance and hybrid model, or are kids going to be like, if they're distance only kids, they'll only have access to kids that are distance only. If they are, you know, in the hybrid model, they'll have access to the kids that they're going to school with. And I'm wondering that because, you know, my kid is a social creature. She is already mourning the loss. She is very sad. We are all sad. And so I'm wondering, like, we aren't going to have these wonderful community nights that Cleve Hill always has provided us. We're not going to be engaging in those because we have factors for our family we have to take into consideration. And so I'm wondering, like, will there be opportunities like that? Like, my kid's not going to go to a dance, but is there going to be ways for her to connect with that larger group of learners that she loves so much because she's coming up from elementary school with them?
That's an excellent question. And I can tell you that right now I have no answer for that. I struggle to see how we could facilitate that. I'll be quite honest with you. I mean, I never thought I'd look so forward to another one of our ice cream socials or one of our dances, a football game, a concert, a musical, as I am right now. You know, our after school activities are virtually non-existent. We're hoping for sports to open up September 21st. I'm not overly optimistic of that. I can only hope. But until we see some loosening up and of what the expectations are, we're really not going to be able to do anything like that. I mean, I love the idea of it. And if we can find opportunities, or if you can even come up with ideas, you know, I encourage parents to work together to try to come up with opportunities like that. I know in my own family with my own kids, there's a small group of their friends that they are allowed to hang out with and go to their house. And there's a small group of friends that my wife and I will regularly socialize with. But as far as being out in without those structured, pre-discussed with the expectations for social distancing, hand washing, and things like that, I would encourage parents to work together on that.
Mr. MacSwan, can I just add to that a little bit?
Yes, and also right after you're done, Mr. Wiles would also like to speak.
Right. So during this time of closure, we had to get very creative with how we could build a sense of community and help kids support and interact with each other when they weren't present in the classroom. And I just want to give a brief shout out to our counseling staff who really came up with some creative ways to encourage this. We had weekly hangouts where kids could come together, anybody who wanted to, and there were structured activities where kids were virtually meeting with the counselors, and Mrs. Baltazar was engaging them in different activities. We had what we called daily announcements that went out, but they were truly interactive, where kids were uploading videos and playing games and challenging each other and quizzes and all kinds of fun activities. So, you know, I just wanted to put out there that it is challenging and we can't replace a dance in a virtual setting, but our counselors are phenomenal and they understand the social emotional challenges. They're already working on different lessons and activities that they are planning on pushing out to our remote learners. We can't replace that classroom environment, obviously, that would be ideal, but if we can't get that environment, they've come up with some unique ways to reach out to kids to help support them during that time too.
Thank you, Mrs. Kirsten. We'll now jump to Mr. Wiles.
Yeah, just to add, that's actually a component that's been part of the district and building plans, is to evaluate our K through 12 counseling plan. And a part of that is opportunities for, you know, the individual and group counseling. So even though a student might be in a distance learning session, they might still be brought in for like a group counseling session where they could be with their friends and work on certain skills, or the opportunity for Wednesday, having some of those synchronous opportunities to be brought back in, although digitally, into that classroom setting where they can kind of see some of their peers. So between the you know, some of the fun events, between some of the actual tried and true, it's a testament to our counseling and our other staff, mental health staff here, that they're working on establishing those and building on some of the existing practices to make sure we keep those kids that are on distance learning a part of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Wiles. Yeah, when you mentioned dance, I was thinking in-person stuff. Like, God, I cannot wait for that to occur once again. Back to Jamal. Jamal, do you have any other questions for us?
I do. I had a question about the hybrid plan, and of course, I'm opting out, of course. So I know the rule is you have to minimally opt out for a quarter, and I wanted to see if there'd be any flexibility, like in the case, like say midway through or close to the end of the quarter, there was talks about doing going to the full in-person model, or the school decide to do the full in-person model. Do you still have to stay home until the end of the quarter, or could you switch back? Or is there any flexibility with that rule at all?
Yeah, and Jamal, thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify. If we go 100% in person, yes, you could transition back into school. Just that simple. Yeah. Where it gets challenging is it's going to be a tight balance between supporting distance learning requests and offering the hybrid model, and having students being able to fluidly transition from distance learning to hybrid and back could create some staffing nightmares across the district K to 12. But if we do go to that 100% capacity back in, absolutely, you'd be able to transition back in. Thank you, Jamal. We will go back to Amy. Did you have, and I believe Mary and Amarella, your questions, I think you guys said you were done. And Amy, do you have any further questions?
I think she left.
Okay, Megan, do you have any further questions?
I just have one more. So when you're talking about going back to 100% in person, that's assuming that that's 100% in person with still guidelines, because COVID's not going away by September. And so virtual learning will still always be an option in that setting, correct? Because a kid's going to get a cough or a kid's going to get a fever and then they have to stay home. So there will always be that option to be home if that's what needs to happen, right?
Well, you know what? I hate saying the word always, because I am hoping that someday we are in a post-COVID reality. However,
I just mean by September.
Yeah, I know what you're. I'm the eternal optimist, so I'm hoping and praying that someday we can have you and your kids right back here in the building. That being said, while there is any level of COVID threat, we will be honoring the parent requests to do full distance learning. I wouldn't ask you, I mean, like I said, I mean, myself, I have immunocompromised people in my own family. I'm afraid to hug my own mother nowadays. I mean, that's kind of the world we live in right now. So, people that have a genuine concern, fear, or compromised immune system, either with their children or in their family, we will honor that request for as long as it takes. Do you have any, was that your last question? All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you joining us.
Great job, guys. Thank you so much. Really, I don't think there's any district out there that's doing it better than you. And so I'm proud to be part of Cleve Hill.
Megan, I can't thank you enough for saying that. It has been a long, long haul. And I do appreciate you saying that more than you know. Thank you. We all appreciate it. And we will go back to Jamal. Jamal, anything else?
I believe just one final question. I looked briefly at the plan about how lunch would be in the gymnasium for high school. So I'd probably go to Mr. Wiles for this. Can you just explain how lunch would work? Because I didn't really read too much in detail about that.
Well, I can touch base because Mr. Wiles, if you'd like to jump in on that, feel free.
I was just going to say that essentially there's still going to be a serving line. Kids are going to walk through the typical serving line, receive their lunch, walk over to the gymnasium where there will be desks and tables set up at a 6-foot social distance. That way students can actually sit and take their mask off, have their meal. The only time the mask would need to come back on is if they are getting up to throw their waste away, things like that. But It is still going to have some of those feelings of, like the classroom where desks are all facing the same direction. And it's not going to be a typical lunchroom feel where you can just kind of openly socialize with your friends, but it will be a chance for you to, take the mask off, have a meal, decompress a little bit. And then we'll have more information. Our tier 1 team and some of our subcommittees are working on creating some guidelines, some informational material for the kids, just to make it crystal clear as far as like what's expected of you, what we need from you, what you can expect from us, those type of things. So all of that's in the process, and we'll get that to you as we can.
Well, I mean, I listened to
Thanks.
lots of parts of her.
Okay, thank you. I believe that is the end of our questions. I just personally want to reach out again, thank everyone for your participation. Jamal, it's great to see students here joining us and asking questions. I appreciate that. But everyone, not only for participating tonight, but your feedback, your support throughout this very challenging period. I want to remind you that we will have another one of these town hall style meetings scheduled for next Wednesday at 11 o'clock, and on Thursday that the principals will be doing their question and answer. If you have specific questions for your building level principal, please go online to our reopening COVID link. You'll see there where you'll be able to send those questions directly to the principals, who will be videotaping their responses and airing those beginning next Thursday. And again, I just want to remind everybody, we work for you. Please don't hesitate to reach out at any time to give us a question, call, or comment. We appreciate it, and be safe, everyone, and looking forward to seeing people back here in school. Thank you all.